Welcome to Creative Conversations. I'm Roger Humphrey. In this episode, I'm pleased to welcome the award-winning violinist and conductor, Tigran Shiganyan. Please join us as we talk about performing and conducting on the international stage. Before we begin, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. It's an easy thing to do, it doesn't cost anything, and it really helps out a lot. Thanks. And we are welcoming to the show violinist conductor Tigran Shiganyan. Hey, Tigran. Also, I should mention that we're pals. We know each other.
Hello, Roger. Nice to see you.
And you as well. As you have you lean in a little bit so I don't lose your audio.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you hear me well?
I
now?
do. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. So it's always a little tricky. Technology is wonderful when it is, but it's not when it's not. So anyway, regular viewers of the podcast may recognize you from an interview I did earlier this year with your mother, the wonderful composer Dilaram Saidamanova. And she was gracious enough to spend a little time with me, and you were gracious enough to interpret. Because I know zero Russian. I can say da and yet. After that, I'm
good enough.
After that, I'm done. So thank you again for that. But now it's our turn. We get the chance to chat a little bit, and I have stuff that I want to talk to you about if I can. First off, the last time we spoke, you had a new CD out. Now, since then, you've got a second one or a third. It's actually a third CD, I believe. You have the French music that you did in 21, about 3 years ago.
Yes, it came out 21. I think it's a 21. Yes, I think it's COVID. Yeah, it's a 2021, and there was French music. I recorded with all my friends.
So it's piano and violin.
Piano violin. Yeah, it's released on iTunes, Spotify. It's Journey to France. Yeah, you can under my name to find out that. Yeah. Well, I recorded Franck Sonata, Frances Sonatin, Zigan, Ravel, and Debussy, couple pieces, and yeah.
It's a lovely recording. I was listening to it recently, and I love listening to you play. And I had of course, the pleasure of listening to you practice years ago when we were colleagues, and that was always fun. So it's fun to hear you play. I've seen you perform live a few times in chamber settings and such, which I've enjoyed. Do you get a chance to perform much anymore as a violinist?
Yes, I just did it this last April, my faculty recital at the Flint Institute of Music. It is actually online. They released it. They released it on their website. We did with Dr. Zakirov Iskander, if you remember. Yeah, your colleague also.
Yes.
We did Brahms Sonata number 2 and many small pieces. The concert was called My Favorite Melodies. So it's on the YouTube channel of Flint Institute of Music, should be. Yes.
Okay, cool. I'll see if I can find it and maybe post a link to it in the descriptions when we publish this. So that'll be nice. So for those people who've not heard you play, I really encourage them to take the time to listen to you because you play so well. So
thank you.
Do you get it? When you perform, is it just kind of like faculty recitals? Are you performing do you tour anymore or anything like that?
Right now I little bit shift to different also project as conducting, mostly connecting with the conductings. For example, for the past 2 years, I released with wonderful colleagues of mine 2 CDs.
Oh.
One actually CD is recorded in Madrid.
Okay.
with Madrid chamber soloists.
Okay.
The wonderful, actually based in East Lansing, our pianist and worldwide known recording engineer Sergei Kvitko.
Yes.
We recorded actually a Mozart concerto, number 20, and two rondas, which is actually, which actually he composed his cadences, and one rondo he's completely reorchestrated.
Oh,
So it's
wow.
yeah, it's that project, that recording, well received. It's got many reviews included as a gramophone magazine, and it's also available on Spotify, um, Spotify and iTunes and all digital distributions with the
Sure.
Madrid Forest.
So,
So
and you were the conductor on this project?
so it was my first actually conducting recording, and it was absolutely phenomenal for me experience.
How is that different from performing in a traditional sense?
It's recording. It's always a little bit tricky because in those days, the level of performances and recordings went on such a high level. So even small subtleties which you will maybe not notice at all in concert settings, it will be very obvious on a recording, and it will be disturbing. It's like some like even noises.
Right.
No, in concert settings, we quite often capture by um, uh, musicality, personality, interpretation of the soloist or the group or wherever who we're listening in that moment. So we some many times not noticing those tiny distraction, I will say.
Right.
When on the recordings, even those tiny noises make a big distraction. So this is one of the thing. Another thing, I do remember one of my experience. I will not mention who is was soloist, but the recording, his video recording, what I saw his first Sibelius concerto, as it was actually one of my was favorite recording, and I love that recording, and it was like my like almost first choice.
Uh-huh.
And eventually, I do remember many years later, I was driving with a friend of mine in a car, and he put CD of him, the same concerto recorded, and I didn't know it is from that concert.
Okay.
And to my attention came so many other things which I never noticed on a video recording. So I even took it out that CD and checked it if it's the same date, and it was the same performances, the same. So so this is why many actually great artists prefer to do live recordings.
Oh,
Because in the live recordings, we are the artists, musicians, the more preoccupied with them, more important, in my opinion, things with the musical thoughts about what the more thinking about musicality, about interpretation, than rather make sure one not get scratchy or out
right.
of
Uh-huh.
tone or something. They're not busy in their mind with this most of the time. Yeah. So as a result, it's coming on a completely different emotional level performances. Then in the studio, you don't want is still preoccupied with the with the thoughts under your mind. Oh, make sure it's not scratched, make sure it's not squeak, make sure it's not out of. So, which is, I tell you honestly, it doesn't help to get to the mood. Actually, the music, what you perform, it's a little bit distraction in a different direction. So in my opinion, both sides, the live performance or recording has a pluses and minuses as we speak.
My college students, when they were getting to a certain level, would decide that they wanted to do some recordings for auditions and things like that, and so they would ask me to recommend a studio, and I would had a friend of mine has a small project studio. It's perfect for solo guitar. Not much of anything else would be perfect for that, and I've used it for years, and he's very good at what he does. But I would tell him, I said, well, I've only got one song. And I say, well, plan on a couple of hours. And they go, but the song is only like 2 minutes long. I said, well, you have no idea what you're talking about here. Dude, it's the process of recording, because it is my words, I guess. When you make a recording, it's a product
It
and
is.
it's never going to get any better.
It,
Ever. Whatever is on that recording is what is on that recording forever. In a performance, you can play a concerto, for example, and you can play it for 6 months in different orchestras in different cities, and it will change every time, and it'll always be a little different. And if you play it poorly in one place, the next time you can kind of make up for it. But when it's a recording, that's it, baby.
I always recalling the book what I read about Pablo Casals. Yeah, I'm
Uh-huh.
sure.
Yes. Great
Um,
cellist, Spanish cellist.
exactly. Yeah. He's the first who, as far as I know, officially discover six cello suites.
Okay.
All that music on some store and before his first performances of his the six suites, as far as I read it, as I do remember, he practiced 20 years
Oh, I believe that. Yes.
before he performed first time. And he actually resisted for many years after that to record it
Uh-huh.
because he felt it's not great enough to record to preserve. And as far as we know, he is one of the greatest cellists, and
Oh,
the recordings of
I
him.
actually, when he did record that, I actually had that set, the recordings.
I
Oh,
haven't listened yet. I
oh,
didn't pull out to listen. So, but it's a fascinating. He was very kind of particular about putting this down because, as you said, once you record it, that's it. It's a final product.
well, and it's interesting that Glenn Gould, the very first piano recording he made, was the Goldberg Variations by Bach, and
Right, right.
the very last recording that he ever made was another recording of the Goldberg Variations by Bach. And you listen to them side by side, and I don't think the average person would pick up on it, but for somebody like you and I that live in this world, you go, oh, that's kind of interesting, right?
Yeah, I listened both of them. Yeah, it's absolutely tempo-wise different.
Yeah, yeah. It's fascinating. I have a friend of mine who is in the process. He'll be on the show when he gets done with his project. He has transcribed the six cello suites for solo guitar, which has been done before, but he's doing his own, and he's done a tremendous amount of research, and he's found some things that nobody else has ever mentioned about these cello suites and Bach and so on and so forth. That's his story to tell, and I will get into it with him at another day. But it's really quite fascinating that his mentor from the Eastman School, Nick Galusis, who has also been on the show, Nicholas Galusis, told him point blank. He says, "I want to see those when you're done." He says, "This changes everything for me," and so it's yeah. It's the interesting thing. I was talking to my wife about it the other night too, and I said it's interesting about Bach that 300 years after the fact, after he wrote these things, we're still finding out new stuff. it's still intriguing. There's still something there to learn. You know, you would think you'd have it pretty well covered, but
Exactly. I right now, for example, when I teaching my students at the back, I little bit when I have been taught playing Bach, it was more like a little bit more romantical side.
oh yeah, sure.
Those couple recordings like Henry Sharing, and they're all been more romantical performance, which is
Uh-huh.
almost close to my heart. This type of performances. Now, so many people say, no, 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 no. We have to go back to the Baroque style. We have to go this stuff, which I understand the point too, but I also, if you notice, the Bach almost have, at least for the solo sonata and partitas for the violin, he almost did not put any dynamics.
Right.
Not put any dynamics. Um, so what I don't think so. He was being lazy to put it, but I think he was giving more freedom to the performer
I was gonna say he trusted the performer, right?
to explore, when on those days, modern composers wanted to put everything into score, and you have to follow
Right.
exactly things. If you step up, down, which is I understand the point also too, because, for example, if in the old times orchestra had a maybe whole week rehearsals for the one program. Now, in some European, for example, orchestra, they have a one rehearsal per concert.
Wow.
So just physically for 3 hours amount of time, rehearsal time, to cover everything and make a recreate your vision, it's almost impossible. It's almost impossible. So with the bug again. Go back to the bug. Everyone has now your own truth, how to perform and everything.
But you know, I think it was one of his sons, and I think it was Wilhelm Friedrich, but I'm not sure, who in writing later in his life was complaining about musicians who played music from that era. Not that it was played that often, but he complained that he said that they played it very mechanically. That they didn't open up and they didn't play it loose enough. So this would have been, in mid to late 1700s, at the time of Mozart, perhaps. And he felt that the music of his father and other composers at that particular time was being played too literally. That there was yeah, I read that somewhere some years ago. So that's always been sort of my guiding light, that it was not common practice to play it that straight, as I understand it. That the players and the academics and the teachers played it very straight, but the true artists, the people who played all the time, opened it up. So, and I think, for me, I mean, I go back and listen to some of the like Andre Segovia on the guitar, and I hear some of the music, and I hear some of the same pieces played by players today, and they are technically far, far, far better, and they are boring. And I listen to Segovia, and I'm just entranced by his musicality and the fact that he can create this fascinating world with a simple song. I think he could play Happy Birthday and have me drooling. I mean, it was just, and I think that's artistry. That's not just mechanical stuff. That's not just academic stuff. That's real artistry. And I think you have to do that, in my own opinion.
I totally agree with you, but again, you see, I think that time dictating a lot of things how we're supposed to be do.
Yeah.
Again, for example, like with this timing of rehearsals, it's the limits of the timing. How much right now? Let's say orchestra
Yeah.
rehearsals. It's just impossible. The group just try to put at least been together, and time for I think for the time for develop interpretation and artistry and all the stuff, you do need at this time.
So when you're conducting and you have a guest artist,
Yes.
okay, how much do you collaborate with that artist and how much do you just get the heck out of the way? Um, I think if I were a conductor, I think I would. You have to come into a piece with your own point of view, and but I don't know how much of that gets in the way if they have a point of view that is very, very different from yours.
It's always tricky. This is why sometimes actually, let's say, to conduct symphony, it's in a way more simple than conduct concerto.
Right.
Because symphony, you're expressing yourself, you're collaborating with the orchestra, with the musician in the orchestra, you're explaining, and more or less, if they're accepting your view and going with your flow, it will come. But it's still one vision coming from you. Now, soloist coming who is practicing many hours, many years, and has another view. So you're always hoping you are matching views.
Right.
We're always hoping for this. But of the end, when I, let's say, doing some concertos with the soloist, I obviously thinking about myself as a second part, because this is a time for shine ideas of the soloist.
Right.
He or she work on those ideas many hours a years, or visit months, and he or she coming and wanted to express fully with their own ideas, and my goal at that moment to support and match the level of musicianship and artistry that artist will be collaborated that evening.
Gotcha. So that would be kind of my point of view also. I don't think all conductors feel that way. There was a wonderful moment years ago. Glenn Gould, we spoke a moment ago. He was a guest with the New York Philharmonic, and Bernstein was conducting. And Bernstein walked out to the front of the stage and addressed the audience. And he said, "I have to tell you," he said, "Mr. Gould and I," he says, "have had some very serious, almost arguments about how this piece should be played." And he said, "I have decided to do it his way. So what you'll be hearing is his version of this, not mine." So he distances himself. He says, "And I never do this." He says, "I've only done this one other time in my career." And he says, and at that particular time, Mr. Gould was also the guest artist. And the audience laughed. But I mean, he was serious. He was so against the way that Glenn Gould wanted it conducted that when he finally agreed to do it that way, he told the audience, "I don't agree with this at all, but this is what he wants, so I'm going to do it." I've often thought that's probably the most extreme because you have two very headstrong, marvelous artists just kind of butting heads like that, like two rams.
So it's I think actually, this is also it's all about flexibilities too. I think in some sort of level, both musicians have to be flexible. I do remember I heard conversation. It's a wonderful, phenomenal soloist pianist, Alexander Turadze. He's one of the prize winner of the Van Cliburn competition. Unfortunately, he passed away 3 years ago. He left many recordings, like Prokofiev full piano concertos. He was touring around the world with the top orchestras. He was actually specialized on performing with the orchestras.
Okay.
He played less solo recitals. He still did, but more often he played as a soloist with orchestras. And And as far as I understand, a lot of conductors loved to perform with him. And one of conversation with his students, and he mentioned, you do have to help the conductor to understand your interpretation. You do help with your intention and the tempos and or other stuff, because again, it's good if the soloist has two rehearsals with the orchestra. Most of the time it's just one.
Okay.
Sometimes, like, and sometimes like in the morning rehearsal and evening concert. So it's if the soul is busy coming from airport to the studio or the rehearsal room, it's no time for discussions. Was it changing tempos or something? So it's so in that case, yeah, obviously, both sides have to be in some level of collaboration.
Yeah, that whole sense of collaboration, and I kind of want to stay on that topic for a second too, with collaboration, because you did a recording of your mother's music, and I know some of that was stuff that you had commissioned. I believe you said. Is that correct?
Right.
And so, how much collaboration is there? I mean, it's one thing between an artist and a composer, but a mother and son, the dynamic changes a little bit. So how did that affect it? Were you able to cast that aside and just work as professional musicians at that point?
Yes and no.
She doesn't speak English. You could say.
Yes and
So,
no. Uh, obviously, I'm fortunate enough. My mother, composer, um, uh, and as far as I love my mother
of
music,
course.
she in many ways she's trusting my some, let's say, violin
Okay.
expertise. She always, if I suggest some, let's say, technically to rearrange things in violin part, um, um, if and I give her my view, and if it's matching to her musical idea and musical thought, um, she always flexible to change if needed. Um, you know, so in that way, I'm fortunate and have a such a privilege to do. And I'm guessing, many composers, if they're collaborating specifically with some artists who then writing the piece, they're following the suggestions. I do remember I heard that history of creation of the very famous uh, violin concerto by Aram Khachaturian.
Okay.
You he composed that piece for Soviet Union Russian violinist David Oistrakh and
Okay,
dedicated.
sure.
Yeah, and the timing when he composed that piece, it was during the Soviet Union time. In the suburbs of the Moscow, they had a like village for composers, where the composers will come in the summer, sometimes in the winter, and they will have their own houses there with a piano, and they will work there. And in one of the summer, and some musicians also will come, and then some. It's like summer vacation was.
Gotcha. Hmm.
One summer, the Khachaturian and David Oistrakh was the same time there. So as far as I heard, that apparently Khachaturian constantly every day will go David Oistrakh house and showing his concerto, and probably discuss all those technical approaches. So again, with my mother, I'm very fortunate and privileged. We always have a always this like artist to artist discussion and collaboration. If I feel something, I would love to change it for the better technical violin approach. She always taking in a consideration, and most of the time we do that.
Well, that's, I've had a couple of other composers on, and I've asked them kind of that question from their perspective, and they say, "Oh yeah, I've got to collaborate." If they just I need the input from the performers when they are if it's a commission, and but I wondered how the dynamic would change because of the familiar being family. That's kind of interesting. So how many conducting performances do you have right now in a given year, approximately? And
Yes,
this is international, right? I mean, you go all over the world.
thank you. Yes, it's coming up. I'm looking very much forward to this. December, I'm flying actually on the 8th of December to Uzbekistan and neighbor country Kyrgyzstan,
Uh-huh.
and our phenomenal, wonderful, wonderful Michigan State University College of Music faculty, prize winner of Tchaikovsky competition, internationally known cellist Suren Bagratuni.
Okay. I know the name, but I've never met him. Her?
Yes,
Him or her?
Suren Bagratuni. So
Oh, Surrey. Okay, yes.
Tigran Shiganyan, yeah, he's faculty professor at Michigan State University, College of Music. We're coming and we are planning to have two Haydn's concertos,
Oh,
and actually my mother piece, Shadow of the Woman, which commissioned by him, if I'm not mistaken, 2019.
okay.
And first him actually in Michigan first premiere was happened. So he's coming and will hopefully will have a concert in Uzbekistan in Tashkent with the chamber orchestra Turkestan, and 2 3 days later we're having in a neighbor country Kyrgyzstan performs the same program. So it's exciting to me. Project is in many levels because first of all, collaboration with Professor Bagratuni, and it's those two phenomenal concertos by Haydn's, which is very standard repertoire, and finally introduction of Uzbekistan with premiering this piece with a soloist who commissioned. So it will be one concert in both countries. So I'm very much looking forward to
That
this.
sounds like fun. So with the political atmosphere and climate as it is right now, how difficult is it to travel back and forth and to get around?
It depends where you go.
Okay.
Where you go. So far, political situation with Uzbekistan and actually Kyrgyzstan, it's normal.
Okay, not a problem.
It's not a problem. It is in many ways collaboration in many levels. And actually, I'm actually very happy to see this part of the world. It's post-Soviet Union countries, both of them, located in Central Asia. They're more and more opening to the rest of the world
Oh, good.
in terms of many levels. Right now, like many citizens in many countries can travel there visa free, and it's a beautiful places to travel. It has a many historical important places like ancient cities, Samarkand, Bukhara, which is in the 12th, 13th, and 11th century was a center of science in the world at that time.
You posted some pictures of your recent vacation there, and I was just stunned by the
Yep,
beauty, and so I thank you on a personal level for that because I really enjoyed those a great deal. So
absolutely,
so
absolutely.
Well, Tigran, believe it or not, our time is up. We are out of time. Thank you so very much for taking the time out of your day. I recognize that alarm bell going off a moment ago. I've
Thank
I've heard that many, many times.
you for having me. It was a pleasure always.
But thanks a lot. I'll talk to you soon, I hope, okay?
Absolutely, absolutely. Happy
Bye-bye.
evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye. I want to thank Tigran for coming on the show. It's always fun for me to talk about music and performing with someone who's as talented and knowledgeable as he is. I hope you found it as entertaining and as enlightening as I did also. Just a reminder, I now have a weekly blog that is an extension of this podcast and provides updates on all of my guests. You can find it at www.rogerhumphrey.com. You don't have to subscribe to listen to it, but it sure would help if you did. And I promise, no spam. Thanks again for listening. I hope you'll listen to even more episodes real soon of Creative Conversations with Roger Humphrey.